diplomat's wife, a spy, and, well, actually, no, sorry, they're the same things apart from the wife.
I mean, probably.
But to be fair, could it be that the wife's a double agent? And that's the reason why she was coming out of the airbase.
If Feinstein's Chinese driver is any indication, yes, it could.
Ooh. Ooh, that's not good. That's not good. Oh, right. For people that are not aware, because I know that we've got a couple of people that have come from Don's channel. I don't know how much the news has been up and about this in the US. I'm going to guess not too much. Basically, you've had a spy that's come over to, I say spy, I mean, I'm literally using air quotes unironically for the first time in like years. But he's technically a spy, so I have to do the voice now. Coming over and trading information, and he come over with his wife, and his wife was able to run over a 19-year-old boy or girl. We're not 100% sure. Well, we are, but some of us are ain't.
I swear to God, the first 5 articles I read about this said it was a woman.
To be fair, I've seen some of the pictures of him, and I don't mean to speak ill of people that have passed, but I mean, it goes either way. There's a possibility.
Brought this on himself, you say, or herself.
Itself?
Whatever.
We're trying to be politically correct while having a joke. This is what's wrong with the world.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry. The premise of the actual stream. Basically, diplomat's wife run over a lad that apparently means that she has diplomatic immunity and she cannot be charged with any crime whatsoever on UK soil, and it has to be that the US decides to give her up for us to be able to take her. I'm sorry, feminism, but I had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, what?
And the premise of the actual show is technically that we're going to be talking about, is it a good idea that diplomats don't actually have a cap on what they're immune from? So I think straight off the bat, we can both say, me and Don can both say that if you commit murder on foreign soil, then that country probably has the right to, arrest you.
Well, I mean, look, if it's overt murder, yeah, that sort of makes sense. Like, I mean, I realized that there was actually an entire movie about this in the U.S., which is to say Lethal Weapon 2, where a guy quite literally was, I mean, he was selling drugs, trading slaves, killing people. And
the typical U.S. stuff then.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If he was an ambassador from Detroit, then yes.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, they're Pacifics, and no, not the ocean.
Yeah. So, but this was a previous time when a bunch of people were upset about diplomatic immunity, but I think it gets hazier anything below that. I mean, I'm okay if you're a terrorist. All right, fine. Probably not so much diplomatic immunity. And this is how it ends up getting revoked a bunch of the time. But I think in this particular case, we're in a slightly hazier territory than outright murder, which is kind of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my video, I'm not sure if anybody's watched it or whatever, probably not considering size of channel, but whatever. Self-aggrandizing aside, I went through the actual Vienna Statute, which is basically what lends us what we're supposed to actually have, what's supposed to be considered diplomatic immunity in our country, in the UK at least. Mm-hmm. And it basically states that any person that is on a diplomatic mission, and again, I am literally using air quotes non-ironically at this minute in time, It's completely immune from any judicial law, any civic law, or basically any fucking law. Let me just break it down like that. It's basically immune from any law from our own country prosecuting them at all. We have to go to your country or whoever else's country it is to go, can we please prosecute this person for committing murder? Please?
Well, so here's the problem with that, right? So when you have two countries as similar, generally speaking, as the U.S. and the U.K., right? The same when it comes to criminal law. There's a lot of overlap, right? Then this seems absolutely ridiculous. However, if your diplomat is going to Saudi Arabia, that kind of thing could be pretty important. You know?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to advocate that diplomats shouldn't have some sort of level of immunity. I mean, if you were to go to places like, as you said, Saudi Arabia or Qatar or even the Philippines, for instance, and you were to, accidentally denigrate, the religion or God forbid, Muhammad somehow, and it was a case of you just said something and now you're going to be beheaded. Maybe we should, push that to the side and say you're immune from that. You didn't really know, and different laws are stupid. Yeah, but we should have a universal understanding what isn't immune.
Probably, but herein is the problem with that is when we do that sort of thing. One, government and writing of laws, not very good at exception cases, right? they're not, right? The government's answer, whenever it is that they write a law, is almost always like, oh, if it's an exception, then some judge will take care of it. And then that doesn't happen because why would they? And so what you end up with is like this really broad stroke thing. And because, can we all be honest for a minute? The likelihood that someone is going to be tried under local law is orders of magnitude higher in places like Saudi Arabia or Qatar or in the Philippines, that Duarte will just let the local populace kill your diplomat because they have Sudafed. There's a decent...
I'm willing to meet you halfway on that one. I'm willing to meet you halfway.
not Sudafed, but if it's heroin, then whatever.
Well, it depends what white substance we're talking about. Oh shit, let that one slip. Anyway, sorry about that.
But and so these things get made in broad strokes, and supposedly the answer is that, despite that, it is the actual output is that what happens is that the UK comes to the US in this particular circumstance, right, and says, well, please let us do something. The big question is what, right? And from there, in reading about this, I didn't get a lot of definitive answer on what, because the prosecutor that's asking for her to be sent back is like, oh, we're not going to charge her. And I'm like, well, then are we just shifting blame at this point? Because if you're not going to charge her, then hell with it. Let's stop wasting everybody's time. Worst case scenario, put them on the phone so everybody can talk and then call it a day. But if you are going to charge her, then okay, let's talk about sending her back, right?
Well, I was trying to say this in the video towards the end, but I think for this particular case, I don't really think that we could really try her in the means of, having a free court where nobody knows where her situation is. It's been national news for the last week. So as soon as the court case comes up, somebody's going to have a bias at some point, which means it's not a fair trial by definition. So I don't think we can really go on to the point of this one particularly, but I think if we were to move on and be able to say that, if somebody accidentally or intentionally was to, run somebody over and kill them, that maybe they shouldn't flee the country and should be held and then, asked if we can then, prosecute them without them running away.
So therein you come to a real problem, though, in execution, and I don't mean that in the way of killing people, but in execution of how that actually works, right? Because if the local country is permitted to just keep you, then what's to stop other local countries from just keeping you? And this seems like one of those times where what probably should have happened is cops went over to the consulate, and I assume took someone from the UK government, because if you go to a consulate in a foreign country and go, "We're the police and we want to do something," the consulate's answer is always like, "Yeah, that's nice. Your soil ends at the door. Go away."
Yeah. No, that's very true. But the thing is with this story is that she was arrested. She was taken to the police station, and then as soon as her identity was found out, it was then no drug or alcohol test on the driving, considering that she drove on the wrong side of the road. For us, not for you.
An important distinction.
Yeah. And then it was a case of she was just told that she was able to go, obviously, because, diplomatic immunity stretches to family, which is my main contention. The gentleman in question, Johnathan Sacoolas, isn't actually a diplomat. He just has diplomatic status. He's only there on trading of information, apparently. So he's not actually a diplomat, but has that status.
Well, now, again, you run into what it is that you would want diplomatic immunity for, presuming that you were, going to say that it was fine anyway, which is to say that, like, again, let's take non-first world Western country and put diplomatic immunity there, right? So in the 80s, there was a bunch of problems with South America and Americans because they would go down there and they would do normal American things that were illegal. And so local populaces often would detain them and all kinds of other things. And they'd get robbed, which diplomatic immunity doesn't save you from. But
surprisingly,
yeah, turns out criminals still don't care. So, but they go down there and they do illegal things. And so what you end up with is, well, can we send just an ambassador and nobody else? Or do we send just the ambassador with diplomatic immunity and then everyone around him doesn't have it? And if that's the case, then if you're carrying a gun to protect an ambassador and the local populace is not permitted to carry guns, what do you do about that?
Technically, that goes to the Article 31, which is any of the diplomatic person's entourage or entity is actually under the same jurisdiction as the diplomat.
And there is where you find, because let's face it, as good intentioned as all of these are, this is where you find the abuse, right? Because guaranteedly there is an American diplomat somewhere in the UK, right? I
imagine there's a couple, especially with the deals and whatnot that are supposed to be going on.
I have to assume, right? And I don't know off the top of my head, but I could reasonably agree that there's probably 50 of those people at least. And so what you end up doing to kind of keep track of your own populace this sort of way, when you put somebody in another country, is you just go, okay, well, if we're sending Americans there, then we're just attaching them to the diplomat, and they're all now part of the entourage. So despite that this guy is there as for the sake of exchanging information, he is exchanging information which is presumably peripherally, in the sense that information is being exchanged, related to, some deal between the UK and the US. Because of that, he's peripherally attached to being an ambassador or something along those lines. And so he gets diplomatic immunity. And for all the same reasons that we granted diplomatic immunity to the wives of actual diplomats or ambassadors, we extend that to the entourage's family as well, which is to say, if you back to Saudi Arabia, right, or Afghanistan or something, if you walk outside as a woman without a hijab because your husband happens to be a diplomat there, then the local populace can't do whatever they call a trial, right?
They can't enrich your experience of being there.
Exactly, right? And so we end up in a situation where in its own odd little way, it sort of makes sense that it works out like that, except the correct answer here should be, well, look, the end result is this is a friendly country, and you did fucking kill someone. Maybe maybe we can figure out a phone call or something. I mean, let's at least start there. And look, truth be told, being as it's Trump and Trump just says things, we're going to figure something out. It's going to be amazing and tremendous and just the best. And so
you've been working on that
for a couple of years now. And so, I mean, maybe something comes out of this, but look, if you're America, what good incentive do you have to say, yeah, go put her on trial for murder? Equally speaking, the basis of this complaint, I think, is actually one of the reasons we have diplomatic immunity, right? I mean, let's remove the killing someone from the scenario, right? Now, whether or not she's drunk, right, which could matter a lot, because, again, Western countries no drinking and driving basically anywhere. But if a British diplomat comes to the U.S., drives on the wrong side of the road, and gets a reckless driving charge, which can very well happen, which carries a prison sentence, that, I mean, is that really what we're looking for?
Well, no, I do see your point, but I mean, the problem is, if it was just reckless driving, you could just go, yeah, you know, you're not 100% sure, you know, could have just drove on the wrong side of the road, you know, vice versa, and all that type of stuff. That's fine. The problem does come from the bit that we excluded.
Right.
That bit's a big deal.
So, again, the question here then comes down to what is it that you want diplomatic immunity for? And I think most of the world could agree, like, well, walking out into the middle of the street with a machine gun and mowing down the local populace, maybe not that. Like, maybe just...
it depends where, but I see your point.
Maybe that's diplomacy there.
I'm not going to say any.
In an attempt to not get your channel.
Anyway. To be fair, my channel's never monetized anyway, so it's fine. It's just going to get completely and utterly destroyed at the end of it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I know that pain. Somebody recently left a comment that said, hey, I saw 2 ads on this video. Is YouTube broken? And I was like, God, I should check and see if this video is monetized. No. I think YouTube just made a mistake.
It was from the previous video and the one before. You know, you just thought it was the same video.
Right. 2 ads and 4 videos. It just that's what happened.
Talking about, I don't want to derail it completely, but talking about ads, my missus watches like some of these story type things, the ghost stories or whatever, and literally there's about fucking 8 ads or 10 ads on a 17-minute fucking video, and it's just like, so any story or content to this, or there's a reason why we have YouTube Red.
Yeah, I don't even blame you. I mean, I can't. There are a few people that I just cannot watch at all on my phone. Like, oh, you made a 5-minute video, which actually takes me 40 minutes to watch because you have 50 ad rolls. Like, come on, man. It's unreasonable. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm completely with you. I watch certain videos when I'm in the bath and whatnot, or any videos when I'm in the bath, and you're just like, right, okay, well, that's fine. Oh, fuck, there's an advert already. I'm going to leave it. 3 adverts later. You getting back to the video, or...
Right. Am I watching the ad channel, or am I watching whatever I was supposed to be watching? And there's some fairly big names that I often mock, truth be told, who do this a lot. And I simply refuse to watch their channels without ad block or YouTube Red. That's it. I won't do it because it's so painful.
No, I'm with you. Though, to be fair, I think that should be excluded from diplomatic immunity.
Totally reasonable.
But, I mean, going back to the actual, I suppose, the point of the stream. I mean, there's lots of things that we can definitely agree on. And there are definitely lots of things that we could say semantically that there are differences in which we could probably talk about different deals for different aspects of people.
Yeah.
But is there a unifying agreement that we could probably say that, you know, diplomatic immunity does not cover this?
Well, the problem there becomes universalism, right? Because if you said you can't kill a member of the local populace, I mean, the knee-jerk answer to that is going to be yes, right? I mean, diplomatic community does not let you just waste the local populace just because. Okay, I mean, I think that would be doable. On the other hand, if you simply said killing the local populace, not without cause, right? Well, then, I mean, look, I don't care how much I like anybody else's country. If we send a diplomat over there and what's his name? The thing that happened with Hillary Clinton and
Benghazi?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So, I mean, them laying waste to our ambassador, I mean, hopefully he kills as many of them as he can on his way out the door. That's all I'm saying, right?
Yeah, but I mean, that's got provocation. You can that's the same thing as trying to say, well, somebody broke into my house and I defended myself. Yeah, you may be charged with, something, but it's generally going to be dropped for, protection. Well, maybe not in the UK.
See, because look, I am one of the many reasons I will never ever go to the UK is yes, chat. Oh, the other Clinton thing, as though that narrows it down. But one of the many reasons I'll never go to the UK, and a big reason why I moved out of California, is that I mean, now that I'm in Texas, if someone kicks in my door, you will be receiving a hail of gunfire, and that's okay, right? But if you're in the UK, I mean, you guys have some people who have been arrested for pulling out BB guns and scaring intruders. And whether or not that is the correct answer is for somebody else to decide, mostly because I don't live in the UK. But what I don't want is an American diplomat over there who is, someone kicks in the door to the embassy, and we have Marines all over the planet with these guys. And you know what they're going to do if someone kicks in the door of the embassy is pick up weapons.
Yeah, which is what they're supposed to do and what they should do regardless anyway. But
exactly.
But us in the UK, we can't even stab somebody if we're 80-something years old and, a 38-year-old comes into our apartment and we need to fight them off, from raping our wife.
Yeah.
Generally, that's an actual story that I've actually covered, by the way. That's not me being hyperbolic.
It's true. Your guys' self-defense laws are
non-existent.
Stomach-churningly bad, in my opinion.
I would just stick with non-existent.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there was that video going around about a week ago where somebody walked up to a lady and knifed her, and the cops shoot off the people trying to help her and just let the guy with the knife go. So apparently, if it's cultural enrichment, then it's legal. But if it's self-defense, then to hell with you.
Well, I'm glad that you're saying it, because if I said it, I'll be put in prison.
Behold the power of being in a different country under the First Amendment.
God damn, it's almost like you took the time to actually write out a goddamn constitution, unlike us, where we don't have a written constitution. Sake.
I mean, don't get too excited. We spend all of our time trying to figure out how to get rid of the one that we have. So,
well, no, there's only certain amendments that they're trying to get rid of, like the first, the second, and a couple of others.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not like they're important amendments that actually, reinforce the rest of the amendments that are there.
No, not at all. But to the actual point, I don't see how it's. I don't see a good way in which this lady ends up back in the UK. Honestly, I just don't. One, if she is actually attached to a spy, the CIA is not going to be okay with that. And let's not kid ourselves. That's who we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. No, completely, not correct. Yeah.
So,
actually, I think he was working for the NSA, though I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'm sure that off branches of the same fucking thing, but whatever.
Well, creepy eye in the sky agency 1 or 2. Either way, they're not a fan of that sort of thing, and so I think it would be generous to say that Trump has trouble with these people already. So,
in what way? I mean, they didn't bug his phones or anything, or that sort of stuff.
Nothing unreasonable like that. So, I mean, and they're not leaking every single word that the man's ever said to the press, because that would be ridiculous.
To be fair, doesn't he have to do that himself now so he can actually control the narrative rather than it going out by drips and drabs? Look what he said here. This definitely says that he was doing quid pro quo. No, that's why I did the whole thing. Fuck off.
There is no executive privilege anymore, apparently, because it just... I got to give it to him, though. I mean, it's probably the most transparent executive office we've had in a generation. I mean, they publish everything.
So they kind of have to because of the misinformation. Oh, Trump's doing this. No, he's not. Here's what he's actually doing.
Yeah, exactly. But look, I don't imagine, mostly because those people really, your various alphabet soup agencies, that don't give a damn about anything. I mean, I want to put a qualifier on that, but it's really hard to pick a thing that they care about. So
their own agents? No, they don't even really care about that.
You know what I mean? They're like, sometimes, right? And when it's public, then they care, right? So bad publicity, they care about that. But only certain kinds of bad publicity, because the rest of us watch the things they do and go, Jesus, that's terrible. And they're like, we're the CIA, that's what we do. Yeah.
That's actually actually, technically it is an answer. What do you want us to do? That's what we've been doing for years. It's like, yeah, but now we know. It's like, yeah, but we're not changing. Oh, yeah. Okay.
What you can do about it because we're not elected. Nah.
Yeah, federal just means we control you, not you control us, bitch.
And I mean, the NSA is not any different. When Snowden happened, there should have been something, but there wasn't ever going to be, right? Because what are you going to do to the NSA? And the correct answer is shut them down, but that's not going to happen because something, I don't know, terrorism maybe. But
it's almost like they use fear to be able to control a narrative that they say other people are using.
Yeah. I mean, if only there was some book written about this, I don't know. Anyway, all I'm saying is, yeah.
Oh, I do find it interesting. I mean, as you said, if you were to just say universally that, oh, right, if you kill somebody in this country, then you're going to be held by the laws of this country. Okay, let's say it's in Saudi Arabia. You then kill somebody in Saudi Arabia, for instance. Their, should we say, punishment is not anywhere near the same as what it would be in other countries.
Yeah.
One might say that that's slightly worse, that the culture out there is slightly different. So, just a little bit. So, would that be the same, or would it be a case of that they would have to be tried on their own laws because that's what they would know? Or should there be a course that they know the laws of what they're doing before they go? Well, I mean, that gets interesting in itself, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, we talk a lot on the channel about American law and how it's so ridiculous. There is, 15, 20, maybe even 30 years ago now, somebody wrote a book called 3 Felonies a Day, talking about how if you're an American, on average, you commit 3 federal crimes per day, every day of your life. And so if you wanted to give diplomats a quick class on American law, it's only going to be 100 years long. I mean, because we're quite literally to the point where you have, if you ask a lawyer in this country about anything other than their specialty, they're going to go like, well, I mean, generally the law works like this, but I don't know. Go talk to that kind of lawyer because I don't know. And that's a guy with, presumably by the time that he has his own practice, has definitely had something like 8 years of schooling, of which I think about 4 is related to the law, and then has been practicing law in his subspecialty for 5 years. So, I mean,
you get less for prison.
yeah, right. I mean, if you accidentally killed someone, for example. But because of that, by the way, the way early in chat was somebody was saying, well, she should be tried in America, right? Well, here's the problem with that. America has thousands of pages of jurisdictional law, right? And so, well, where did this actually happen? Did it happen in the United States jurisdiction? And the answer is
no.
Maybe. I mean, in the sense that if you are in a car that has diplomatic immunity, it is technically American soil within the car, but the person who died was outside the car. So I don't know.
Yeah, good thing about semantics.
Except that in law, this kind of ridiculous semantic argument often turns whole cases. Right? I mean, it's completely ridiculous. PragerU sued YouTube famously 50 times, right? And he, 3 or 4 times got shut down for jurisdictional problems, right? Like, well, you don't have standing in this jurisdiction because the company's actually over here, and the closest server they operate to you is over there. And so, yes, while they do in fact provide a service here, it's not under this jurisdiction. You would need to actually file it over there. And then when you go file it over there, what you find out is well, you don't actually live in your jurisdiction, so you can't sue from here. And it took them something like 2 years to get a court to actually look at a case past jurisdictional grievance, right? So when I say a lot of cases turn on this sort of thing, it's a serious problem, right? So, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, the question of whose jurisdiction is this under, but it's a serious question in American law.
And it's one that can, as you quite rightly just said, can legally be contested either from a UK point of view or more importantly from a US point of view.
Yeah, right. And so, I mean, where it is that we try this will make a substantial difference. I mean, look, while our two countries have a lot of overlap in broad strokes of what we find is illegal, like if someone dies as a result of your action, you're probably criminally liable for something, right? Yeah, I mean, self-defense, right? So if you're driving on the wrong side of the road simply because you're an idiot, in most of the U.S., that's going to be manslaughter, possibly 2, right? Possibly 3. You weren't doing something extremely, legendarily negligent or something, but I guess you could make the case that she was. I mean, driving on the wrong side of the road and hitting a motorcycle does seem epically, legendarily stupid.
A little bit.
At the same time, when you take into account, from a different country, and in my country, we drive on the other side of the road all the time. Well, okay, then you probably weren't just doing it for kicks, right? Which seems like a manslaughter 1 kind of charge.
Which is kind of what I argued in a video. I don't think that this was anything. I don't think she was done for any sort of malice in this whatsoever. I generally think that it was a kind of a mistake.
Probably.
Which, I generally think that it was. Not, though, to be fair, I have had a look at her previous driving convictions, and let's just say this is an interesting development.
Is it a pattern, you say?
Well, there's a correlation, as we said before.
Fair enough. So, but in that case, right? So, I might agree to a move to manslaughter 1. Chad is asking whether or not she was intoxicated, which seems like a relevant question because in the U.S., if you kill someone negligently, but you were committing some other crime at the time, you can be charged with murder 2 or 3, which carry a heavier sentence than manslaughter. And so, at least in U.S. law, that can be very important, right? But again, and I don't know British law off the top of my head because, I'm not British.
Well, we have intent and non-intent. So if you basically cold red blood, if you did it calculatively, or if you just did it in a void of passion, or if you led up to that point knowing that you were going to do something or could do. Basically, it's the same thing as what US law is. It's very fucking complicated because it can be interpreted in any fucking way you want.
Right. And yes, general premise, right? So presumably, and I assume sentences escalate. If you went and I don't know, bought a knife and you told the cashier, I'm going to go shank somebody with this thing, and then you actually go do that, I presume that, you had intent and forethought and malice, and therefore the sentence is worse.
Yeah, the sentence will probably go to 25 to life, which basically means 25 years, and then probably will be down to 20 with good behavior and possibly down to 18 for, doing some good work.
Yeah, that sounds like the U.S.
Hey, we did say that we drew parallels.
And so, presumably with the law at least this similar, it would stand to reason that, okay, look, maybe you didn't intend to, maybe, I don't know, we somehow or another the defense doesn't, or the prosecution doesn't get a hold of your driving record, and so you spend, I don't know, 2 years in British prison because reasons, and let's not all jump to conclusions about this person actually going to jail for a long time, because let's face it, women don't go to jail for very long, ever, for any reason. So
I can't argue that point. I want to, but I can't.
It's the pussy pass is real, and it's a big deal. So,
or one might say it's a wide cavern.
There's a large open space, a gap in sentencing, one might say.
One would say it's gapingly looking at you.
Exactly.
I'm completely agree with you on that, because it does come to a point of, let's say that we agreed that murder is bad and it should be done as that country should be able to do that. Don't get me wrong, we all agree that murder is bad. That's not what we're having a debate on or anything. But interestingly, what you said before then comes into really a massive contention. Where would she be tried? Because she didn't actually commit any crime on US soil, so she couldn't technically be tried in the US.
Yeah.
And under diplomatic immunity, can she be tried in the UK under UK law for it?
So, to the best of my knowledge, this has only happened a handful of times, and it's usually in epically clear-cut situations. Somewhere down in South America, I want to say, because, America and South American diplomats apparently is just a constant disaster. But,
unless you have Costa Rica, then basically you're literally their army and their Federal Reserve in the point of for no reason whatsoever.
Outside of that, though, he had a diplomat that I think got caught moving cocaine, and a lot of it. And local law said, hey, look, we would try this guy, but you have diplomatic immunity. And it was right in the heat of the war on drugs. And I want to say it was Bush Sr. went, fine, no diplomatic immunity anymore. Do what you will. So in that sense, it does happen, but that's very much, that's a political game, not a criminal justice kind of discussion, right? Because a lot of the reason Bush could get away with that is because the heat of the war on drugs was going. If you had done this on American soil, then we would come after you. And America right now really, really hates drugs. So, or at least that's what the voting populace said. And so, have at it, do your thing. But outside of that, is there a lot of political will if the shoe was on the other foot? If a British diplomat drove on the wrong side of the road and killed somebody in America, would the UK populace just be like, yeah, send him over there, put him in jail? Right? And I don't think it would be that hardcore. And I think you're going to get the same thing out of the American populace. Like, wow, that sounds like basically what Trump said, right? This is a huge tragedy, but I don't really know. And that's the politically safe answer. Is it horrendously unjust? Yes, it is.
No, I'm completely with you. I mean, taking away the, should we say, emotional side of some kid dying and whatnot, and looking at it from a logical point of view between two countries rather than the individual diplomat and the individual person who was killed, you kind of have to look then at, well, how does that affect the actual diplomatic relationship? How does that then put strain on one side? How does that push the other side? And if the Prime Minister, for instance, Boris Johnson, was to push too hard on Donald Trump to get this done and he got that to happen, would Donald Trump necessarily help with the deal? Vice versa, if it was the other way around, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting situation. I suppose you could say what the True Grave actually says in chat. Should she pay for it? Yeah. But the point is, what is the actual price that she and the countries are going to pay for? That's probably the problem. And that's really hard for me to say on a moralistic, on an emotional point of view. But logically, that has to be the question that you answer.
Well, to some degree, this also goes, by the way, to one of my favorite discussions in the whole world, which is a system of incentives, which is to say that when you have people who have diplomatic immunity, they are quite literally above the law, basically always. And just like everyone else who is above the law, you get a lot of negative behavior out of people who there are just no consequences for their actions. Like, oh, well, you get drunk and drive on the wrong side of the street and you do it every single day. And basically what happens is the UK police pull you over, they find out who you are, and then they escort you home because there's nothing else they can do. Well, why would you stop driving drunk as a skunk all over the country? Who cares, right?
Yeah,
every time
I'm with you.
You get a lights and sirens escort home.
Or even if you want to save petrol or diesel or gas, in America's case, you might actually get a lift.
Right? I mean, you know what? It turns out I really am just too drunk to drive. I'm sorry, I puked in my passenger seat. Can one of you drive my car home and then you guys just give me a lift? I mean, if that's the response, then unsurprisingly, they're not going to change their behavior. And unchanged negative behavior tends to escalate until it no longer can, right? So, again, not knowing her previous driving record, I am guessing by previous statements that it was not good.
Let's say that she does like to drive drunk.
And so, I mean, if that's the case, then not to be terse about this, but if you're going to have the lady driving drunk all over your country every day of the week, how surprised can you be when she eventually kills someone? I mean,
true. I mean, I suppose the next point to that is, and I'm not countering you on your point or anything, but just thinking logically, then the next point would be, then why didn't us, the UK, kick them out for being undiplomatic? To say we don't want them to come back when they've, left and come back again.
Yeah, well, so that's a big question unto itself, because that's a thing that happens all the time, right? Is that countries go, look, your diplomats, while we're not prosecuting for any of this because we can't because of diplomatic immunity and we don't want you to invade our country, dear US.
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah, right. And so, look, the sort
actually, please do, because then we actually might leave Europe.
Yeah, well, you would definitely leave Europe. But this idea that you can just go over there and do whatever you want. I had quite a few friends that did embassy duty when I was a Marine, and they would tell you all the time, look, you have diplomatic immunity. But if you get drunk and in a bar brawl and somebody reports that to the embassy, they pull you out of the country. And as often as not, they put you in the break. Now, I'm not opposed necessarily to that sort of mentality, right? Because if you're acting like a dick in some other country, first of all, you're making America look like crap. So stop it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if the local populace is like, look, you are so horrendously intolerable, get out of the country, then okay, good. Leave. Again, you're making America look like crap. So this seems like a kind of reasonable answer. And the question of why this didn't happen before kind of comes down to everybody trying to play nice instead of standing up for themselves, right? So if, and look, it's getting to be kind of a problem everywhere, but well, in Europe specifically, right? If some foreigner does something on basically any European country's soil, the answer is, well, I mean, they're foreign. Like, well, hold on a minute. That's not really a good answer now, is it?
No, but I mean, the diplomatic community, as well as we discovered and gone through, is a very interesting aspect, obviously, because of the history, making sure that people are safe on diplomatic missions and so on and so forth. When you have some foreigner just coming across and going, yeah, I'm going to run after you and stab you from just for hitting me.
Right.
It's kind of a bit, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're treated the same, but they shouldn't be. Because one actually has diplomatic immunity and one you're just too scared to arrest because, racism, apparently.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Thank you, Tim. So, anyway, but yeah, exactly. And, well, I guess the effects are sort of the same, though, right? But if you go back to the 80s and 90s, you will find diplomatic immunity being revoked and people being expelled from countries for being a pain in the ass. And I don't know if it was the war on terror or Obama, but seemingly that all went away somewhere in that era, right? And I mean, I'm sure part of it is the war on terror, because then you start to get this, it doesn't matter what happens as long as we're winning the war, I guess. So thanks, Patriot Act. But outside of that, I know that during the Obama era, it was basically don't expel diplomats ever for any reason, unless they're Russia, because they're the world's enemy, because reasons.
Pretty much.
Other than that, it was everybody play nice all the time, and if diplomats do something stupid, then don't worry about it. And we even had one of our own diplomatic problems with this sort of thing back under Obama. And as I recall, he just said, well, at some point, make sure you leave, which is a hell of an answer.
Yeah, it kind of dismisses everything from coming from that country and, the supposed relationship that is supposed to have been built up and whatnot and, that type of stuff. But then again, it comes back to the previous point. Do you want to destroy all of the relationship or some of the relationship or an aspect of the relationship that's been built up just because of one person and, literally the whole news outlets and mass media being able to report on what's been going on? Or do you just go, well, somebody hit somebody and they did work for us, but now they've disappeared? Problem solved?
So therein is an odd sort of question, right? And I'm a little unsympathetic to the idea that this destroys relationships with countries. And again, probably because of time in the Marine Corps. But if you go look at Okinawa, once every handful of years, we get some dumbass Marine who does something really stupid in Okinawa. And every time it happens, there's this, oh my God, they're going to kick us out of Okinawa, and on and on and on and on. And don't get me wrong, some of those things are really horrible, right? A handful of years ago, somebody got charged with rape. A few years before that, somebody got charged with rape and murder. I mean,
at least it's getting better somehow.
Yeah, right.
Rape and murder just to rape. I mean, it's getting better.
Here's we'll only have sexual assault.
Then it's a win, apparently.
I mean, hey, it's improvement, whatever. But
by the way, I have to do this. Sorry, feminists. That was a joke. Please do not demonetize the channel. It was well, at least on my part, it was.
Well, on the upside for feminists, we are teaching Marines not to rape.
It's taking its time, though.
Yeah. But I mean, every time this sort of things happens, and it's basically happened, as far as I know, every handful of years since 1970 onward, we hear that Okinawa is going to kick us out, and on and on and on it goes. And that is what plays in the U.S. press. If you go read the Okinawan statements, they're like, no, we kind of just want to prosecute this guy because, murder's bad. Yeah. And what ends up happening every single time, one, it's the military, or one, it's the government, two, it's the military. So bureaucracy happens and it takes its time, but they seem to have gotten over that, or at least come to understand that that's the way it is, because there is, it takes 6 months to a year, and that guy ends up with permanent orders, so he can't get out of the military during that time, and he just stays on Okinawa in the brig waiting for whatever to happen between the two countries, and then he spends a bunch of time in Okinawan jail. So, I mean, this idea that it's going to destroy the relationship and that's it, it's going to be over. I mean, it doesn't actually play out that way, though, right? Well, look, no matter how good of people you have everywhere, and no matter what your barrier to entry, there's always a jerk off somewhere, and we at least used to know that.
No, I mean, I'm actually completely not with you. I do think that in itself, this one situation is not going to destroy any relationship with the UK and the US, regardless of how some people think that this is absolutely horrendous. Yeah, it is horrendous for that one person, for that family, that individual situation. Her running him over, yeah, horrendous. Does that mean that that's going to stop the UK and the US from trading? Definitely not. I mean, as bad as that is to say, it's not. Let's be honest about that. It's generally not.
I mean, the value of the value of human every human life and all that, and countries that are super excited about their own populace. I mean, look, make no mistake, we did pave over two countries because someone killed 3,000 Americans, and so yeah. But at the same time, Benghazi happened, and we did nothing, except blame a YouTube video, to be fair. So
don't forget the sniper shooting.
Well, yeah. Snipers are very dangerous if you're Hillary Clinton, I guess.
Well, it depends if you're using them or if you're on a helipad, I suppose.
His name was Seth Rich. I mean, moving along quickly. But
I did not expect my channel to actually get closed down today, but yeah, as we're going down this road, why not?
Look at it this way. At least the worst case scenario for you is the channel getting shut down. I might shoot myself in the back of the head 47 times.
Well, with a shotgun and a pump action at that twice.
I mean, dear YouTube as a whole, I'm not feeling suicidal, and I will not be shooting myself in the back of the head with because America, handy dandy pump action shotguns.
I mean, that's the sad thing of now. I mean, we're talking about this type of incident. And don't get me wrong, I am saying that it is a horrendous incident, and it is. And I'm not taking anything away from the fact that somebody has killed somebody. I'm not taking anything away from that. So please don't think that generally. But if we're going to be talking about, let's say, political murders and things like that, why are we not looking at our own governments? And I do include my own government in that. But I mean, Clinton's would be, the best place to start.
Yeah. Well, the short answer is, who's going to do it? Seriously. There's
Snowden?
Well, you got to understand he's a traitor to the country. And being as he recently came out in support of Bernie Sanders, that might be correct.
He's just trying to get back into the country.
Yeah. He hopes that Bernie wins so he can get back because Trump didn't do it. I don't know. But the reality of the situation is no one is going to bother looking, right? And the people that do are shut down at every turn. There is a whole subsection of the U.S. media that nobody ever talks about, that all they do is FOIA the various names, the Freedom of Information Act, the various names that you've all heard: CIA, FBI, NSA, all these things. And they spend a bunch of time in court trying to get these Freedom of Information Acts requests honored. And it takes them years, right? And so a few times they have, gone after some subject, and by the time they got the information, the subject of whatever they were looking into had died of old age. So fat lot of good that does. And look, governments protect their own. They do. And to that point, somebody in chat, Ain't Jack, if she had killed a UK politician's son, I bet it would be a much bigger deal. Yeah. I don't mean to sound like a cynical jerk about this, but if it's someone with the political clout to go down to the embassy and say, look, I can cause real problems for you, then things change. And since it isn't, dear plebs, right? Understand who you are, and you're the same person I am in this boat. If a UK or anybody, right, any diplomat is driving around here and kills my wife or my kid, there's not much I can do about it. Not legally speaking, anyway, right?
But no, you are completely nightly correct on that, though.
So
you are definitely completely nightly correct on that. I mean, if, as what Ain't Jack said, if she did kill a UK politician, son, for instance, yeah, the politician is going to use his or her clout to do whatever he or her can to be able to, make somebody pay. But that's not just the fact of them abusing their power or doing anything else like that. If your friend had their son killed, you wouldn't go after that person who killed their son as much as you would if they killed yours.
Yeah. And, the further you make this removed, right? Like, so if a neighbor 25 doors down had their kid killed, like, well, I mean, look, I've probably driven past you 3 or 4 times in the neighborhood, but who are you? Right. And then move to, my local city councilman, which I'm sure I have seen at some point simply because I live in a small enough town now. But I mean, that person doesn't know me. Right. They have no idea. They have no personal attachment to it. There's no want for vengeance in their action. They're just doing whatever they can. Right. And so it sounds cynical and dickish, but it's basically the tragedy of the commons as applied to representatives. So,
or put it even into more simplistic terms, that's how humanity works. If it affects me, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to fucking make it affect you. But if it affects you, sorry, I don't really care that much,
right,
or as much.
It would be was the Thanos meme. You ruined my life. I don't even know who you are. And that's sort of what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Whether anybody wants to, say it or not, that's what it comes down to. So, is that shitty and terrible? Yes. But it's also what is going on.
It's exactly the same. It's the way of the world, unfortunately. That's the problem of it. But as it is the way of the world, it's how we have to interact. I mean, yeah, I can make all the videos and me and Don can talk about this and literally the cows will get shot because, Green New Deal and all that type of stuff. But when they do eventually come home, we're not going to change anything. It's great having a conversation, being able to have sort of a mash out, if you want to, or, an idea of what we could do, what we couldn't do, and how things could work and how they couldn't work. But in the grand scheme of things, we're literally 2 plebs talking on the internet about stuff that we can't do nothing about.
No, I am not Tennessee Marine. Though apparently we all look alike. But look, there was an idea of how to make this more personalized once upon a time, but the simple reality at this point is we've abandoned the idea, right? So real localized government makes this more reasonable to hash out, right? So if you have a local mayor who, let's be honest, has no international power of any kind, right? But if you have a local mayor, right, whoever it is that's running your town, that actually knows the constituents, right? So this cannot happen in Los Angeles, London, San Francisco, any of these other things, right? But if you're in, I don't know, middle of nowhere USA, and somebody kills one of your constituents, and it's somehow an international issue, and there is a nationwide group of mayors, right? And that mayor goes to the nationwide group of mayors and says, hey, tell the feds to pound sand on every single issue until somebody takes care of this. Like, you, the local family member, have no power of any kind. But that mayor knows his constituents, knows the people that he is looking after, does in fact take these kinds of things personally, and does have a way to reach out to national power and say, hey, look, maybe I can't end your life. Maybe I can't, destroy all of your hopes and dreams, but I can make your entire life just that much more of a pain in the ass until you at least take a look at this. And as we, have growing populations, that goes away. Because if you're Sadiq Khan, right? Okay, let's presume you're a better person than Sadiq Khan in nearly.
It's not really hard, though, is it?
in every imaginable way, right? And you do actually take the at least this kind of safety of your constituency seriously. Then look, Sadiq Khan is in the news enough that if he wanted to really cause a problem over this sort of thing, he could, right? And furthermore, if he wanted to make this a problem for I guess it would be Boris Johnson right now, he could. And to be fair, I guess he kind of is. And so is basically everybody else. And so that small personal grievance does have the ability to reach out to a different nation. But of course, like with every layer of bureaucracy, the further up it goes, the less important it becomes, unless your local governance has a direct way to reach a higher line. And you find that a little bit more in the American system of government. Again, National Consortium of Mayors, or whatever the hell they're called, could get that sort of thing done. But whether or not it happens, who knows? And you'd have to have mayors who understood that, like, oh, this is the power of being a mayor. So we need to reach up to the feds and go, like, look, this is a problem. And then, of course, that'll get abused because it's the government and everything gets abused. But that aside, that is how it would get done. The problem that I think everybody has is that, I don't think for a moment, no matter what, if we extradited this lady tomorrow, right, or like right now, as we're talking, we put her on a plane, we sent her back to the UK. I don't think that affects any trade negotiation of any kind, period.
No.
If we don't put her on a plane in the next 5 minutes, I don't think that affects any trade negotiation in any way that it wouldn't have already been affected, right? So Corbyn would pick this up and be like, see, the U.S. hates us, but he says that about everything. So, it's not really changing anything. He's just saying whatever the current news item is as a reason why America hates us and hates the UK and can't be trusted to trade with. So I don't think any outcome changes really anything here, which unto itself determines how important it is.
Unfortunately, very much so. We as citizens can look at this from a different point of view and go, yeah, if this was my son, this was my daughter, whatever, we can go, yeah, this would really affect me. But if you look at it from a very, very cold and logical point of view and nationalistic point of view in relations, it's one death. As cold and as horrible as that sounds, it's literally how they're going to look at it. It's not that important, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong. To me and everybody else in the room and everything else like that, it could literally be anybody. And it's important to me that something should happen. Will it happen? No. You can bet your bottom dollar that this will get forgotten in the next news cycle. It's not going anywhere. Nobody's going to be tried for this. She'll probably come back next month and probably do this again. But, I'm just trying to be a little bit facetious.
You're not wrong, though.
In general. Nothing's going to happen to her. Nothing's going to happen to him. the relationship is going to stay exactly the same between the UK and the US. And unfortunately, as sad as that sounds, that lad is never going to get any justice, and his family are not going to have any sort of recompense from it. Though it depends on the recompense. It depends on how America want to sort that one out.
Yeah. Well, the truly American way to deal with this is that we'll probably end up paying her parents a lot of money, and Trump will write her a nice letter.
I mean, that's kind of where I was hitting at.
Look, it sounds cynical and dickish, but it's what's going to happen, right? But I would storm the U.S. Embassy myself and make a huge scene. Well, I mean, look, cannot advocate because YouTube, and even though it's not my channel, I don't think I should get Common Sense Guy struck off the internet. But this is one of those things that's easy to say, hard to do.
I mean, even if it was my son or my daughter, I would not storm the US Embassy. I might storm my parliament, but I'm not storming the US Embassy. Yeah. They have fucking guns.
Yeah, I understand that earlier thing I was talking about, a bunch of Marines in there with weapons. I wasn't kidding. So, I mean, they definitely will act like a bunch of Marines with weapons. And when the U.S. Marine Corps interfaces with the populace where they're using firearms, I'm just saying it does not go well. So,
I mean, they've made movies about it, but it's fine.
I mean, I understand what you're getting into, I guess is all I'm saying. So, but look, as to the idea that this will be forgotten, yes, it probably will. Is that shitty? Yes. But one, I spend almost all of my life on the channel saying I'm old enough to remember things that happened 2 weeks ago. You know? So, and at the time they were supposedly world-rending events, and I watch them go by and I'm like, look, by the 1st of next month, none of you will care.
Yeah.
And that's sort of just the truth of the matter, right? So sad and crappy, but look, there will be a new cause tomorrow, and everybody will they'll move along.
The sad thing with this is, and I don't mean this to denigrate the family, because unfortunately this is just the way that humanity is and humans are in general. Yes, when something happens, you want to fight the world. Unfortunately, eventually that fight dies. No pun intended, and I didn't mean it in that way.
Yeah, no,
but that's the way that it is.
It is, right? I mean, look, there was a couple of years ago, U.S. news was, for like an entire news cycle, was really concentrated on this guy that he had done a sperm donation to a pair of lesbians or something, and they...
Oh, I've got a joke for this. Is that from Holland or is that from the US? Because we don't have sperm donations apparently from this country because of Brexit.
Oh, okay. No, it was from the US. So, I mean, and it was a big deal, and it was like, oh, we really need to reform this system. And it was on major news networks across the country, and various people that I knew were like, oh my God, this is a travesty. And I was like, guys, I've been telling you this for years. None of you care. And about a month later, half the same people I'd go back to and go, so are we going to reform that? And they were like, reform what? What are we doing?
Yeah.
You don't actually care. You just want an outraged news cycle for like a week. And then you need to calm down a little bit and go, well, I mean, follow through is hard, and I don't really want to do that, and on and on and on and on. And then about 3 days later, it's time for a new outraged news cycle.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's generally the fact. I mean, for instance, how many times do we see terrorist attacks where everybody goes, all right, we really need to fucking do something, and this is the last time. We're never going to let it happen again.
Yeah.
We just had, 4 or 5 people that have been stabbed up in Manchester. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a terrorist attack and it's been treated as one. Is it national news? No, because it happens too regular now, so it's not national newsworthy anymore.
Yeah. Look, For a brief moment, I actually thought you guys were going to do something when that truck of peace crossed the bridge in London, and then the guy got out and stabbed a cop. And I mean, it was a pretty giant thing for a little while. And a month later, nobody cared.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we have a sympathizer that's actually in the mayoral office at this minute in time. I mean, it's not like we're being killed from the inside.
No, nothing like that. And, you know, I mean, it's, but I don't know. I have a lot of cynical views on the UK populace with this sort of thing, because you guys really seem to think that the government will fix this for you. And you keep running into the reality that the government does not care, right? And I guess we're picking up a lot of that mentality in the U.S., right? I mean, Bernie couldn't be getting traction if we weren't. But the simple reality is, once every 3 or 4 months, we do a story on somebody trying to sue the NHS for having done absolutely ridiculous things, right? And if every single time the words come out of my mouth, if this happened in the US, that doctor would be going to jail. And the output of that is the British government tends to go, well, I mean, but it's the NHS, leave it alone, right? And so, I mean, look, there is a simple reality that the government doesn't care. It never has. It never will. And so while these tragedies happen, if the only output is, well, we want the government to do something about it, then nothing will ever get done about it.
I actually completely agree with everything you said. I do think that we're too indoctrinated into the idea of government will sort everything out for us. Hence why we keep on voting in more and more socialist policies, and the more and more that we keep on going, oh, Europe's a good idea. What, you want to take away our sovereignty and give it to somebody else? Yeah, but they look after us. You're a dick.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Well, I mean, so to the earlier point that the more localized the government is, the more it can be held accountable. Because, by the way, if you're that mayor who just goes like, well, I don't care about my constituents, and you have a small enough community, then the community is like, oh, you don't care? Well, have you considered not being mayor?
Well, yeah, to be fair, I mean, that's kind of where we are with Sadiq. Can you do something about knife crime? But police are racist. No, can you do something about knife crime? Yeah, but stop and search doesn't really help anything. Can you do something about knife crime? Okay, stop and search and come back. You're a cunt.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is, as you diffuse the government, or you make governmental power more diffuse to the populace, the more you get this sort of thing, right? And it's sad, but it's true. And for all of the people who are voting Remain in the UK, I don't understand them at a personal level at all, though I do, as I occasionally spout in various chats, when if you find me in like the Discord or something, these are people who think that what are they called? Experts know everything, and those people over there who have been given authority for any reason are experts. And that's how you get like, well, maybe the UK can't really decide what happens in EU Parliament, but we do have a veto that we can't veto anything with. But
even if we do, there's a second vote that they can put through.
I mean, to a just absolutely ridiculous degree. I look at the EU, and I have for years, and been like, why are you people a part of this? It's a giant trade area. Isn't there a thing called the Schengen zone where you don't have to put in, you don't have to deal with any of the EU crap, but you also trade with the EU?
Don't be silly. We voted to actually go in. Oh wait, no, we didn't.
Yeah. Well, there's that.
Yeah, there's always that.
Education does not equal intelligence. Yes. Yes.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head before, where people go, "Oh, experts can tell us," or people believe the experts.
Yeah.
My point is always to them is, who is funding these experts? When you have people like let's say the British Bank, for instance, who funds them? Who puts the most money into them that they get in refunds and rebates from? Oh, it's the EU. Who actually funds the people that are actually running that to actually, help them make a decision? Oh, it's the EU. So, where's the incentive for them to say that this wouldn't happen that way?
Yeah, and part of the problem with this, in my opinion, is the outcomes don't matter, right? So it doesn't matter how many times the EU is wrong. It doesn't matter how many times the UN is wrong. It doesn't matter how many times, I don't know, whatever consensus, because that term is a dead giveaway that that's who you're talking to.
I have no idea what you mean. My consensus is you're wrong.
Exactly. But anytime you're talking to any of the people who believe this general sort of thing, what you end up with is like, well, look, their track record of being wrong is like 99.75% incorrect, and by accident they were correct over there.
But don't you mean, Don, that they have a consensus of 99% of being wrong most of the time?
Yes. And so, I mean, that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that the grand plan didn't work out. It doesn't matter. I mean, this is the no true communism thing, right? And everything else along those lines. So it doesn't matter what the outcomes are. It doesn't matter how bad it worked out. Back to even the point of the stream, it doesn't even matter that, let's all be honest, if this lady's driving around drunk every single day, that presumably, I think Downing Street can just go over to the consulate and be like, look, we give this lady a DUI once every 7 hours. Make her go away.
But no, it's completely right. I mean, if she has had, most of her, should we say, background is from US soil. So we don't have too much from her background in the UK soil. Surprising that we don't have, any sort of background on that. But but unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So we could assume that this has probably happened, not the death, but the driving. It's probably happened before, and probably will happen again. And unless the government or the US decides to pull her back, which, to be honest, I kind of guarantee that she will not be allowed to come on missions anymore with her husband if he is still allowed to come on missions.
Well, so this is one of those things that it would be almost impossible to find out, right? Because if she gets attached, or if he goes somewhere and she gets attached as a member of the family and doesn't actually go for like 5 years, right? The earlier news cycle discussion, by January 1st, 2020, no one will remember, right? I mean, this kid's parents will remember. They'll be like, hey, wait a minute, but are they actually looking at the roster of diplomats that are going to the UK? Furthermore, since we have diplomats everywhere, they just send her somewhere else.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, I would actually be a little bit more cynical than you. I actually think that nobody will be talking about this by the end of, the middle of next week. I was going to say the end of this week, but technically it is.
Right.
And, I'm talking about it. So somebody's talking about the fucking thing.
Yeah. And look, there, when I looked, this morning for me, right, which is 3 hours ago, was this morning for me. There were still articles from today being written, but look, the next time that Trump releases a tweet, this is out of the news cycle. That's it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, no, as I've been not trying, because it sounds like I've been cut off. I haven't, and I've actually been very gracious as a co-host tonight, so that's good. But generally, when I've been trying to say overall that it comes to a point where the family will stop fighting, that could be in a year's time, it could be in 5 years' time, it could be in 20 years' time, but they will. Unfortunately, it's just a way of life. the news cycle itself will be like, yeah, well, nobody really cares about this anymore, and they will move on much before the family ever does. And the thing is, as soon as the news cycle moves on, any sort of form of traction that this got either side of the pond will completely subside, and nothing will ever be done about it. And to be fair, even if what Aunt Jack has been saying about, going to the consulate or going to the embassy and causing a ruckus, just cause you to then be the news cycle. That would be it. It would move on that way.
Well, so to give you an idea of what this is going to look like, over the course, when did this happen exactly?
Because I think it was last week.
Okay, so let's be generous and say not the most recent Monday, but the one before.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing the pot-smoking, patchouli-smelling hippies are indeed correct about is the stages of grief and loss. And in the span of about 4 days worth of articles of reading, they pretty clearly, the family, went through anger, into bargaining, and now, if you read the articles from today, the quotes from them are clearly depression.
Yeah.
Which means there's only one more. I'm sure we didn't really get to see the denial, right? I'm fairly certain that happened somewhere off camera and away from quotes and what have you. But that does only leave them acceptance. And if they're moving at the rate of what amounts to one stage every day or two, then look, by next week, even they are going to say this is over.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, as you quite rightly said, there is only one more stage for the family to go through, and that's acceptance. Then once that's done, the fight generally kind of fades away from that side of things because you don't think that anything's going to happen from it. And you kind of, as harsh and as sad as it sounds, humans look forward. Don't get me wrong, they will always remember, obviously. Nobody's saying that they won't. But they will, unfortunately, carry on.
Yeah. And look, it's... I hate hippies and smoke weed every day. Look, I'm not saying that if you smoke weed, you're a hippie. I'm saying that there are a group of people who are pot-smoking, patchouli oil-smelling hippies. So...
Hey, what's wrong with being a hippie, fucker?
all kinds of things. Specifically patchouli oil.
Fair enough.
That aside, though, look, when the driver of this, which is going one way or the other, is the family, right? Because again, the political motives will move along to the next crisis, to the next headline, to whatever, about 5 seconds after the news does, and then this family will be a footnote every time Corbyn wants to say something terrible about Boris Johnson, right?
Or Trump.
He's exactly. He's a Nazi. He does these 71 different points. Oh yeah, by the way, that one kid got killed by a diplomat.
And he did nothing. Honestly, he did nothing.
Exactly. And that is the legacy of this kid.
Yes, he will forever be politicized to be used against whoever's in power that they didn't do this at this time.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, again, it might sound cynical, but I've been doing this long enough that it's probably a decent prediction. So,
well, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily cynical. I would actually say that it's more of a case of just being observant and seeing how the cycles actually roll and actually being honest. And I think a lot of creators on YouTube, and not to name any names whatsoever, think that they're going to be able to change the world with a video. They're fucking not.
Oh, there's the wild dream, right? I mean, okay, I'll put out this one video tomorrow, and then suddenly people will care. That day ain't coming, right?
Just be happy if you get for me, probably 100 is a good day. So if you get 100 views on it, at least you've got 100 people that kind of like what you've done.
Yeah.
Especially when only 10 of them normally like the video, which, you're not sure who you even reached on that fucking day.
Well, on that subject, I can't say enough how much Discord and Twitter are better notification systems than YouTube.
Yep.
I didn't shill the show on Discord and Twitter yesterday, and that video was down 50 views from what they normally are. So, I mean, the simple reality is, and I have to say, like, 5 people while we were live streaming it came in and were like, "Thanks for telling me about this, YouTube, you bastards. I found this in my sub box. You didn't even give me a notification."
To be fair, that I've noticed that the sub box itself just doesn't really work. I'm sub to a lot of, should we say, channels that I don't actually want to be sub to, but I need to be sub to maybe be able to do a reaction video to them. And generally, I do not get any fucking notifications from them. And then I look and they're like, "Oh, there's 4 videos that you've missed." Oh, thanks, YouTube.
Good looking out, YouTube, as per usual.
Mr. Ainjack, it's not the fact that we're scared of our own government. It's the fact that we know our own governments, and our own governments do not give a shit about us, and they will shoot us to hide their own ineptitude.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sort of reality. You know, if you are a big story but not a big personality to the U.S. government, you have a tendency to end up dead, specifically if you're related to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, all right, that's my channel gone.
Strange coincidence, really. I mean, it's just the most amazing Jeffrey Epstein thing that I've ever heard in my life. It's crazy. Well, that means you're scared of them because what? I'm always curious what the answer to this is. Not to entirely derail this, but
no, I'm actually very interested as well. If you're scared of a situation that you know is probably or most likely going to happen, like if I'm going to go into a tiger cage, I know that tiger is probably going to rip me to pieces if it's hungry. Am I going to walk into that tiger cage and expect something different? Probably not.
Well, and so therein is the question, right? So, like, clearly you caged the tiger, so you've mitigated the risk. So, while you have a reasonable concern that if you were to step in, beyond the bounds of mitigation, then something negative could happen to you. And what does that mean in relation to the government, right? So, the moment that anything we don't like happens, we respectively storm Downing Street or 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? What does this actually mean? Right?
What does it achieve apart from throwing your life away for whatever reason that you think is a good idea? And don't get me wrong, if your son or mother died or any member of your family was killed, I can understand your anger, but going to attack your own government is not going to, one, affect the person who actually committed the crime, and second of all, not really going to help your own cause in getting, reaction to that crime.
Yeah. And look, there is, in the line of fair criticism on this subject, over the past, 70 years or so, there has become this addiction to nonviolence, it's always, well, if the government was a thing, then maybe we would talk about it. And the addiction to nonviolence has such side effects as being unwilling to determine whether or not your government is that thing, right? A year and a half ago, maybe, Peter and I did a video about, is where you live a police state? And
I watched it. It's a good video.
So it was spawned off somebody saying, "Oh, ha ha ha, lol, 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 police state, lol, ha ha ha, lol." And I was like, well, if that's your answer, then one, it's never a police state, right? It can't be because lol, police state. Well, what would qualify as a police state? And as soon as you start doing that, you start wondering real hard whether or not you're living in a police state.
Well, let's be honest, all of us are living in a police state. If you're under any sort of form of, I'll use this as a inverted commas, democracy, the way that they inform the democracy is by using police to enforce their rules.
Well,
technically, in any sort of form of democracy or government, you're under a police state, just degrees or varying degrees of what that police state actually is.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this comes down to what do you want to define as a police state? Is it a state with police? Because then everything is a police state, right? And then the term is devalued to the point that it doesn't mean anything, right? But when Orwell was writing about a police state, he would have taken one look at any modern society and been like, "You people are nuts."
Yeah. No, very much so. I mean, you look at anything to do with the internet, how much that we're censored on the internet by our own governments, regardless of what people think about private companies, by our own government all censors us in general, especially Europe and the UK in general. We actually have fucking articles stopping us from now using particular links and so on and so forth as fair use. But besides all that, that's just one aspect that is classified or as a part of a police state. They are literally controlling the narrative. So we can't actually do anything.
Well, in your particular case, the cream of the crop for me, and I seem to recall you did a video on this, was the guy that got a knock on his door for liking a tweet.
Yeah.
Anything, just liked one, and I was like, ooh, the eye in the sky is big over there.
Yeah. So the re-education camps. I mean, concentration. I mean. Yeah, re-education camps are very strong in our country.
And I mean, if we had the courage of our convictions, no country in the world would run the way that it does. And this is one of those things that I say that is the, various people on YouTube talk about the coming civil war. And I'm like, no, there's not going to be one.
No.
Not in a generation. Nobody is willing to put their life on the line for things that they don't value, and they don't value freedom. So it ain't coming.
No, I completely agree with you on that. It's the same thing as why didn't people revolt at the beginning of communist states? Because at the beginning, it worked. And because it worked, they got so, in general, because they already had capitalistic tendencies at the beginning. So it made it look like it was working, even though that they were borrowing and so on and so forth, if I want to be pedantic. Because I saw your face.
Oh no! Somebody in chat is telling me to stop smoking.
Carry on. You'll be fine. But in general, that's the way that communism starts. It makes it look like it's really good. You get comfortable, you get happier. Then when people start disappearing or when people start dying, can't be the state. The state's looking after me. I'm all right. It's not affecting me. I'm doing okay. Because you get comfortable with the government looking after you and not working or not doing this or not doing that, you get so, should we say, soft and know that you're being looked after that you kind of it's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome. You're happy with your captor because your captor technically is protecting you, even though they're really not.
He beats you every day, but he does put food on the table. That's
yes.
And yes. It's much more of that, right? I mean, if you talk to, I've never spoken to any of these people, but if you read accounts from early Soviet Russia, a lot of what you get is, well, I'm a good communist. I agree with all of the things of the state and what it's doing, and we're taking care of people. So this would never come from me. I am one of the good ones. And then if you go read whatever the hell, Archipelago, whatever it was, it's the description of the gulags from somebody who was in there. They talk about when people first got to the gulags, they always just assumed it was a mistake. Like, oh, well, I'm a good communist, so this will work itself out. And if they didn't get out of that pretty quick, they ended up dead real fast because, as it turns out, the state didn't care. It didn't matter if it was a mistake. The state doesn't make mistakes. So,
Yeah.
And because there was that separation from mainstream society, it was very small pockets of people who were actually aware that whomever it was that went to the gulag for being a capitalist was actually really just a communist and actually didn't do anything and just got sacrificed. And so what you end up with is 3 people in a town of 205 or something like that, some large ratio there going, no, but Bob was a great communist. He used to read the Communist Manifesto every day to all of us. I mean, and everybody else going, well, the state convicted him. I mean, what are you going to do?
No, I'm actually completely not with you. I mean, I've noticed, and this is probably going to be a little bit of a controversial topic because I'm probably going to get lots of other people who are proper atheists. I don't say that I am, but proper atheists in general are going to go and come at me at this one. But I've noticed that a lot of, should we say, the YouTube atheists in general, not all of them, obviously, not all of them, give up their version of what they found as religion beforehand or what they were indoctrinated as before, and they've found a different religion, which is the state. And they've compensated what they were in religion before to the new one.
Yeah.
And I've just noticed that in general. I noticed that so much in the UK and itself, that we're not religious in the sense of we believe in a God, but you talk about the state or the NHS and we have a religious mantra about the NHS.
Yeah, it having done a lot of talking to Brits about the NHS or just Europeans in general, man, there is nothing in this world that I get friction on faster than the NHS. Nothing. Well, you guys banned guns, and I think that was ridiculous. And you start out with that, and they're like, yeah, well, we didn't really ban guns. You could still have these 5 things or whatever.
We banned them. You try getting one.
But you get a lot of things like that. And I'm like, yeah, but look, welcome to America, where I can walk into a gun store and there's 750,000 different types of firearms on the wall, and I will buy whatever the hell I please, right?
Yeah.
And so that discussion can happen, like, well, but American gun crime, and this can work its way through a discussion. And then at the end of that, you go, and the NHS is crap, and oh, no, it isn't. Jesus Christ! At least we don't have people dying in the middle of the streets like America does. Like, well.
Actually, we do. Have you seen our homeless population?
Right, and it's you go from let's actually talk about this to full-on attack dog mode.
Yeah,
you can't come near my God, right?
Yeah. No, it's such a dogmatic defense that it is almost a fact of a religiosity. It's almost come to the point of you cannot talk about our NHS because our NHS is the best thing we've ever had, even though it is completely and utterly running at a deficit every fucking year and gaining every fucking year, and the wait times are expanding every fucking year, and yet we still add more people that don't even pay into the tax system that you say, not you, but generally people say that is a good idea. Okay, have a welfare state, have everybody in the fucking welfare state actually paying tax then.
Look again to how much of a problem this is. What the hell was the name of that book? The 2 economists that wrote the big giant Freakonomics, right? The Freakonomics guys were getting all kinds of popular, and it was back in I think Blair was still your prime minister. And they went over there and they said, "Hey, look, we kind of just go around and we make economic suggestions, and you guys keep asking us for them. So, we're here. So look, you could do these handful of things." And he was like, "Oh, that all sounds really great." And then they went, "The NHS does not work economically at all." And he said, "Meeting over, goodbye." And I was like, wow. So, I mean, economics is real right up until you get to the NHS. And the more time I've spent on the internet talking to people from Europe about the NHS, the more I understand that, because that's just a fact, right? Probably the most controversial thing I say to Brits all the time, in their opinion, is that the NHS is socialist. And they go, "No, it isn't. It's social."
To be fair, I pushed back when you told me that the first time. I was like, "No, it's a socialist program." It's like, isn't that then eventually working out, well, isn't that then definitionally socialism? If it's a program of socialism, doesn't it make it socialist?
Exactly, right? Because it's not. I think it would be right to describe the general European answer to that as being offended. Like, A, we're not socialist, screw you. B, it's not socialist, screw you. C, screw you. And it's as I have, because I got to tell you, your NHS is one of my favorite punching bags. So,
to be fair, mate, you're not wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that I don't directly have to pay for it, but then I realized that wait, yeah, I do.
and that's another one of those things, is that when taxes are taken out of your paycheck before you see it, you have, and specifically because my understanding is jobs in the UK have to advertise post-tax income, which is a wild thing to me. It really hides how much the government is taking a big wet bite out of your ass. So.
No, no, you're actually correct. To be fair, generally, if a job's going to be 30 grand after tax, they normally advertise it for 32 or 33,
Yeah,
or whatever it is on tax difference. I don't earn that much, so fuck me, I wouldn't know.
but I mean, so because I enjoy taking swings at the NHS, I read a lot about it, right? And come to find out, not too long ago, because somebody asked me, well, do you know where the NHS came from? How do you even know if it's socialist? And I realized I didn't. So I went, well, I know it's socialist because of what it is, right? Which is to say socialism.
Oh, yeah.
Good point. I guess I should go look up and see where it came from. And
do you actually know?
Hilariously, at the end of World War II, the Socialist Party held a lot of power in the United Kingdom, and they decided that they were going to enact socialized medicine and seize the means of production from all the public co-ops to create the NHS. And I was like, this is not a question you should have asked me.
Unfortunately, because it was a coalition as well. It was a coalition government because of the war. Mm-hmm. Everybody says, oh, the Conservatives created the NHS. It's like, under duress.
I mean, the guy who actually wrote the bill for the NHS was the head of the Socialist Party. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the Conservatives held the prime ministerhood, but basically it was, you're going to do this or else.
Yeah, pretty much, because they were literally, as I said, a collaboration. They were literally a cohort that they had to because of the war. So they were still under war conditions and went, right, well, we want the Socialist Party thing to be passed. If you don't do it, then we're going to fuck off. And they couldn't really do that at that point. So they went, all right, yeah, we'll take credit for it.
Well, I guess we're doing it. And because of that, because no party can ever be wrong in politics, God forbid a politician ever says, nope, I was wrong about that. At least while they're still a politician. To be fair, after they retire, they suddenly understand what consequences are. Like, oh, man, yeah, that bill I wrote in 1971 that I've been campaigning on for 30 years, turns out it was a bad idea.
Yeah. Now I'm not actually getting money from backers to be able to actually push this bill, and actually, people in the background pushing and giving me some more money or clout. It was a bad idea.
Yeah. Now that it doesn't matter to me anymore. Yeah, that's terrible. I can't believe you guys put up with this. And so what you end up with is the active party of conservatives going, well, I mean, we did create the NHS, so it must be good. Even though a 5-minute reading of the situation would tell you that that's not really what happened. Right.
Pretty much. That's why when you said, "Oh, I know about the NHS creation," I was like, "You're going to tell me Churchill fucking created, aren't you?"
No,
because that's what I get all the fucking time, even from fucking conservatives. Oh, Churchill thought it was a good idea. It's like, no. There's actually speeches of him saying he disagrees, but he has to do it.
Yeah, he rejected it something like 2 or 3 times.
Yes,
and then they came back and they went, "Do it now, or we're going to tear the country apart." And he went, okay.
Fuck. He went, fuck.
I have heard a lot of the same things from various European people, because, again, I like to take swings at the NHS constantly. Yep. There's lots of excuses. And most often it seems to be the real differentiation between reasonable and unreasonable people when I'm talking to people specifically from the UK is almost never in the first conversation do I end up with, you know what, you're right, the NHS is socialist. But if I talk to you over any lengthy period of time, over the course of, a few weeks sometimes. In fact, I had one guy, just one, Modwayne Alleron, who is a great dude, small channel, and should definitely be taken a look at as often as possible. But I think he came back to me about 2 days later and was like, you know what, I got nothing. It might even have been the next day. It was just, it is socialist. I'll be damned. So
I think mine took between a week and 2 weeks, to be fair. Because it's just a natural thing. It's like, no, it's not. Wait, fuck. Like, I have no defense.
What metric do I have to say that it's not? Look, I get it. I can't even imagine how many times, if you've watched the channel long enough, you probably watched me do it on air. That's not, well, like, shit. You know? Every now and again, chat will really hit you with a good one.
Yeah, true. But that's the whole point. And, well, I don't know about yourself, and I'm not going to speak for you, but that's generally the way and why I do what I do. It's not necessarily to force my opinions onto other people, but it's to broaden my understanding of what other people's interpretation of this is, because otherwise I don't learn jack. And I just stick to what I think.
Yeah. I get accused of being a ideologue on a semi-regular basis because I don't give up easily. I've had more than one person on the internet go, "You are impossible to argue with." Do you know that? I'm like, well, yeah, that's sort of the point. I don't have some wishy-washy opinion. I've usually refined it 40 or 50 times by the time I say it out loud on the internet, and I've come to that position because of experience. You pop up with something that you just think, and chat will light you the hell up like just that fast. So to be honest, though, I wouldn't have my chat any other way. They are not to say those things that bigger streamers say all the time, but my chat will definitively hold me accountable to anything. Like I had better have 50 or 60 reasons and 7 tons of evidence before I say something out loud, or chat is all over me. Like, what are you talking about, retard?
But that's the great thing. I mean, I love that. That's the reason why I talk to the people that I do. I include you in that as well, where sometimes we will have literally hours back and forth on Twitter conversations, literally hours, sometimes even fucking days.
They've been like, all right, I'm going to bed. I'll talk to you when we get back up.
Pretty much. But generally, they're mostly, they are cordial. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do get a bit bitchy, but that's generally because it's text and we're kind of half talking past each other.
Twitter is terrible for that.
But generally, that's what I absolutely love. I enjoy having that massive amount of conversations where you're in such a deep or depth conversation where you can actually have, well, this point means this, and then you go, well, no, well, it means this, and then going into depth of why you think this and why I think that, rather than just going, you're an arsehole and a Nazi, fuck you.
Yeah, I have made more than one video complaining about ponage culture. And at this point, I think I just need to give up and understand that it's here to stay. But the simple reality of the situation seems to be that about 10% of people are actually interested in talking out any given subject. The other 90% are like, go talk on the fags, lol. So, I mean,
as opposed to quote Stefan, great argument. Oh, sorry, that's not an argument.
So, look, I don't think he either is particularly interested in this. But
have you seen his Twitter? No, he's definitely not fucking interested in a debate or a chat. Not unless he's got some money on it or he's on telly.
But so goes the game of being popular. So
I wouldn't know.
You know what I mean? I think we're ish the same size channel these days. So I know your pain.
Saying what? What the fuck am I paying?
Pain.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I'm in a lot of pain. As much as I want to continue this stream, it has been going on a little bit longer than what I would normally do. I know that you do things differently on your channel.
Trying to cut down time, except for the Friday night streams. So I realize that chat loves me running, 15-hour streams and shit. But it turns out that's really tiring. So I try not to do it so much anymore. But no, I was just thinking the same thing as I should probably get up and do things for the sake of said 15-hour stream tonight.
Mine is a case of my missus is going to probably, do things that are not of a sexual nature that I'm not interested in. So I just wanted to quickly recap. I think that we can agree that we would do some sort of form of murder is probably a bad thing, but universally it cannot be implemented because, different laws, different countries and different jurisdictions. But the idea was good. Just implementation doesn't work.
I think that's about it. You know,
I mean, there's more, but I mean, generally that's the point of the stream. We agree that something should happen, but logically, it's not going to.
In the world of recap, that sounds good. If you're here just for now and you missed the rest of the stream, you should go back and watch all 2 hours, or at least the first hour or so, because that's where we really cover it.
Well, it depends. If you like literally two blokes actually having a genuine conversation rather than it being led by a particular topic, I would have said that, 45 minutes after the topic began probably is a good thing. Which generally that was pretty good. But yeah, I don't think you need to, but if you want to, please show your channel as much as obviously you want to, or Twitter or whatever, and just tell people what you do, mate, and fuck off.
Yeah, fair enough. So I know a few people have asked. I am Dawn of Two Plebs. I am definitely not Tennessee Marine. So Two Plebs is Two Plebs Talk News. It is a channel where myself and my co-host Peter regularly talk about mostly American news. Let's be honest, I don't talk about too much international news. But equally speaking, there is some other stuff that goes on the channel. Like I am working on continuing the Operation Choke Point series, which should probably be of interest to everybody worldwide, just saying. And I also run the Dawn the Pleb channel, which is much more shit posting and drinking and reviewing things, mostly for amusement. My Twitter handle is @2_plebs. My co-host Peters is @pleb_Peter, I believe. Twitter made him change it because reasons. In the description of every single video, you can find our Discord. Unlike a lot of people, I am actually in Discord. If you say something to me there is a 99% chance I will answer you. Occasionally, I have a serious case of the man flu, like Monday, and so it takes me a while, but I will get back to you. I think that about covers it.
Oh, I was hoping that you would be able to speak for just a little bit longer because somebody's asked for a link to your channel and I am doing the good host thing as I'm supposed to do, and I am providing a link to your channel.
Awesome. Well, in that case, I try to be a generally reachable person, which is to say, if you show up and talk and chat in a live stream, there is a really good chance that we will actually get to whatever it is that you've said. We generally review chat pretty hard. Also, you may notice during this that I reference chat quite a bit because it's just a habit of mine at this point. If you leave a comment, guaranteed I read it. If it's just shit posting, I may or may not answer. But if you have a question, I don't think I've ever not answered a question on the channel. So if we ever get up to 1 million subscribers, I don't know how realistic it's going to be for me to maintain that. But in the meantime, yeah.
Get in where the plate's hot, so to speak. Get in there while the iron's hot.
Right. There have been a few people that have said they're going to miss private chats and things, but hey, they're, they haven't happened yet. What can I say? So.
To be fair, I'm under your, I like yourself, I presume that you get a lot of people that are sometimes smaller than you, that get bigger than you, where when they're smaller, they're like, oh yeah, I'll definitely come on, I'll definitely do this. And you're like, yeah, okay, well, we'll schedule something. And then they get bigger than you, and then they're like, what do you mean? Fuck you. Well, not in those words, but, in that manner.
It's blown off real fast. That's another thing, I guess. I don't think I have ever refused to talk to somebody on the channel. I have kicked a few people off the channel because it's hard, but I don't think I have ever refused to talk to anybody. So if you're a small YouTube creator, smaller than me, or if you're bigger than me, God forbid, and you want to come down and talk about something, by all means, come on down. If you turn into a retard, I will kick you off the channel. If I have to explain something to you 71 times and then you say the first thing that you said, then you're probably gone.
I'm literally sniggering at the minute because I remember Blue Republic. I think it was Blue Republic. The finances is just like, wow, you have no idea how humans work or how generally, the just general market. You want something, you go after
it. I try to be a patient guy. Chat is notoriously
trollish.
Complimentary of my patience. In every debate I think I've ever had, at some point my chat has been like, I have no idea how you can be this patient with people. On the other hand, it does run out eventually. So,
and generally we call you to execute them. I mean,
that is true. Chad,
be generous and
yeah, Chad is a big fan of the helicopter and Pinochet. That's all I'm saying.
Right then, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching me, don't forget to like or to subscribe if you liked what I've said, though I don't suppose that you would do, but, just if you want to. Please, I don't ask for much, just your undivided attention and loyalty. I'm not a communist, honest.
Got to start somewhere.
But yeah, thank you very much for watching us, and take care, and speak to you all again real soon. Bye-bye for now.